Welcome to the Jack Low Audio Experience, and today joining me is Sam. Sam, how are you
Hi,
doing?
Jack. I'm good. I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing great as well. Yeah, I just had on like three
Awesome.
guests today, and now you're the
Oh,
fourth one.
wow.
Yeah, awesome.
Oh, wow. You got a busy day.
Yeah. Yeah, so before anything else, I'd like to jump into your world. Like who are you?
Yep.
Yeah, you can start off with who are you and how old are you? Yeah, walk me through your world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, so I'm Sam, obviously, 31. Don't feel it, not at all. Feel like I'm about 16. Um, I I'm currently working in an office. When I started in that office 18 months ago, I was really chuffed to be there. It was fantastic, but it's kind of gone downhill. Before that, I was running a business.
Right.
When I was about 24, 25, I left work after finishing university and started a small cake decorating business, and I expanded that into a cafe. Um,
Right.
and I ran a cafe for 3 years, 3.5 years. But I had an injury that meant that I had to stop running around a shop all the time.
Oh
So I had to
gosh.
close it. I was bedbound for 6 weeks and in a wheelchair for another four after that. Um,
Right.
so that was really, really difficult, and particularly with having the business as well. So lots of personal and business challenges there. And yeah, so I kind of had to go back to work, and
Right.
so now where I am now is kind of trying to start another business, hopefully one that's based online and doesn't involve quite so much physical running around, and then I can get away from the work environment and be free again. So yeah, that's kind of where I am.
Right. That's super awesome. It feels like there's so many ups and downs in your life at this
Yeah, there is a
moment.
bit.
Yeah. So I like to talk about your passion, like because I don't really want to jump into what you currently do, that kind of a stuff. I believe there's something in you that you kind of like you really want to do. So I like to dive deep into that world of yours, that the things that
Yeah.
you really care about, that makes you excited, that kind of stuff. Yeah, talk to me about that, and where did it all came from? Yeah.
So I kind of jump around a lot with my passions. I find it quite difficult to stick to one thing. I'm really, really passionate about the living world, nature. I've recently become very obsessed with sunrises.
Right.
So I get up in the morning and I take photos of the sunrise
Right. That's
because
super
as
awesome. Yeah.
I'm just in love with it. It's just to know every day that there's this wondrous beauty in the world, and that everything just it's like magic, and I'm just blown away by it every day. And it makes me feel really in tune with the world. But then I'm also really passionate about reading, and I write a lot, and I want to try and write a book, but every time I start a book, I start a really good story, and then I get sidetracked and start another one and never finish one. So I've got about like 10 different stories that I've written that have just got really good starts,
You
and I
should
go
put
back
it
to
all
them and I'm
up. You
like,
should put it all up on an article or something. Yeah.
put it all on a website somewhere and say, okay folks, somebody make me write one of these. Yeah, and I'm like, I'm really passionate about my family as well. So like family and friends are really important to me. Um, that When I was a kid, I always wanted to have a cafe, which is kind of why I did my business. I was like, I kind of, I never thought it would be, when I was younger, I never thought it would be a really profitable business. And I was like, okay, well, I'll just do what everybody does. I'll work my whole life. I'll save up some money. And then when I'm retired and I don't need to make any money anymore, I'll run a little cafe that it doesn't matter if it makes any profit. But
Right.
then I hated the working world so much that I was like, no,
Right.
you know what? Let's give it a go. So I did that. And having done it, I loved every second of it. And So obviously, when you're doing something that you really really love, it doesn't feel like work.
Right.
And I was really passionate about that, and it was so fantastic to just be working with people, I guess.
Mm.
Like, because yeah, okay, it's a cafe and there's food and drink and all of that, but the core of it was the people that come in every day, the customers that become part of your life. And
Right.
I guess what it comes down to is I'm passionate about life. I'm passionate about the natural world, and I'm passionate about people. Yeah. So, and
Right.
stories. Yeah, that's me.
Mm. That's awesome.
A
So
lot of information there.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So like I'm curious, like, so what is the thing that you're hateful about when you work as at a cafe, you know, you having the
Well, no, it's not.
customers, all that, yeah.
It wasn't anything I hated about having at the cafe. I just really hated working as an employee, working in an office. That I've always hated.
Mm.
Um, I mean, there's in the business, there's always going to be ups and downs. There's always going to be things that are difficult. But yeah,
Right.
I loved it. It
Mm.
was fantastic. Every
Definitely.
second of it.
Definitely. So I like to jump into this segment of like your Mondays to your Sundays. Like I like to understand. Do you have like sort of like a morning routines or what so not? My previous guest doesn't have, so no pressure at all. Yeah, you know,
Yeah,
just
yeah.
walk me through like how is your like Mondays to your Sundays like? You know, yeah.
So I've been. Do you know of Tony Robbins?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I recently came across Tony Robbins. Obviously, a bit late to the game there.
Mm.
And one of the things that in one of his programs he's a massive advocate for is going out for walks when you first get up in the morning and just feeling grateful for everything.
Right.
So I've been working that into my morning routine and trying to
Awesome.
sort of improve my mindset through that. And okay, I'll admit I don't do it every morning, but when I do it, it makes me feel so good. So that has become a part of my morning routine.
Awesome.
Um,
Mm.
Apart from that, I kind of like I get up way earlier than I really need to. And I like to have a relaxed morning where I do some reading and I just sit and be myself
Right.
before I have to face the world, if that makes sense.
Mm.
Um,
Totally makes sense. Yeah.
uh, Obviously, I have my job, which is really rubbish and really difficult a lot of the time. Um,
Right.
so I kind of I, I feel at the moment I feel like a lot of the time I just exist and I try and keep myself upbeat, um, which is obviously a difficult thing for everybody. Um,
Mm.
but outside of that, I've got a life that I absolutely love, and I try and make the most of it. And um, I spend a lot of time helping my family with things and stuff like that. So that's kind of my day to day.
Mm.
Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. So now I like to jump into another segment, which is where I will go like hyper interruptive, and I hope that you don't mind.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's
Yeah.
towards this segment where I talk about you talk about the timeline of uh because I believe that every single one of us is like a byproduct of this many circumstances, the events that actually happen to you that make the person that who you are today. So I like to jump
Yeah.
into way back when you as far as you can remember as being a child until the person that you are today. Yeah. So walk me through
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So obviously I'm based in the UK,
Mm.
but when I was 18 months old, we moved to Holland,
Right.
which like has made massive impacts on me as a child. It it's a completely different culture, and having been I don't know. I have sort of snatches of memories of it, and I kind of feel
Right.
like having experienced two different cultures at such a young age has partly shaped who I am. And I think it's made me more understanding as a person. I hope it's made me more understanding as a person.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, that's I was very lucky in that I always grew up in quite rural countryside kind of places. So I feel like I had a sort of idyllic childhood. You know, it was a very running around in fields and having lots of fun and things like that. And it feels like something out of a storybook. And I feel like that has sort of made me who I am as well. And my parents
Right.
always made me feel that anything was possible. And I
Mm.
live by that today. Like
Awesome.
I
Mm.
I have this, and people think I'm nuts, but I'm just like, anything's possible. I don't care what you say. And people say to me silly things like, well, have you ever tried walking on water? And my attitude is just like, well, you know what? Yeah, I have, and I haven't managed it yet, but it doesn't mean it's not possible.
Right.
And I think my freedom as a child really contributed to that. So yeah, I guess right back from way in the beginning, I was lucky and
I like the
um,
energy, I totally love it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit loopy. I'm good with this. People think I'm nuts, but it's good.
Mm.
Yeah, I guess I when I was a kid I loved learning as well. My dad's really, really smart, and
Right.
seeing growing up with that was kind of like, it gave me a passion for learning, and it made me feel like there's so much to learn. I mean,
Right.
just we always think that people think they know it all. People think that science has got all the answers. They don't know anything. There's so much more to learn. And
Right.
I love that. And I love that there's always going to be something to learn.
Mm.
So yeah, I guess that's part of me as a young child. Um
Mm.
yeah, I guess I I was a bit of an oddball at school
Mm.
because I didn't want to know any of the popular kids, because I was like, none of you are very nice people. I
Right.
don't want to get to know you. Even though I you know what it's like at school, where there's sort of the popular kids and everyone wants to be part of the popular kids group
Right.
and be friends with them. And I never wanted that, because I was just like, but you're so worried about what people think, and I don't want that. Um,
Mm.
um, and I think that's really unusual. But I'm so grateful that I have that, because it it gives me a freedom from like the social restrictions. It's so built into sort of who I am.
Right.
That it gives me a freedom that I think a lot of people don't have. Because I just don't care what people think, you know.
Mm.
Um, uh,
Allowing yourself to be having the freedom to be an authentic yourself, yeah, to be super
yeah,
authentic,
yeah,
yeah, right,
absolutely,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I get
exactly,
that, I get
and
that. Mm.
yeah, and it's difficult, and it's harder for me now than it was when I was a kid, because um, being in like the day-to-day environment with everybody, and having to behave in a certain way at work, makes it quite difficult to hold on to that mindset. Um, but I always go back to it, and I always remind myself of it and say, no, look, why do you care what anyone thinks? Because why should I, you know?
Mm.
Um,
Right.
so I like to remember that when I was a kid, I was like that all the time. So yeah, that's
Mm.
me as a kid, I guess,
That's super cool,
a
that's
little
super
bit.
cool, yeah. I get that, I get that,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah. So, and I know it's difficult for a lot of people, and I wish I could teach people how to not care what people think, because I
Yeah.
know so many people who are so restricted by what other people think, and I it's painful. It's like, why do you care? You
Right.
know?
Right.
Um,
So
what,
so I like to jump there real quick, like you
yeah,
talking about judgment, like I know Gary Vee talks up a lot about this before,
Yeah.
whereby judgment, opinions coming from the
Yeah.
outside, like there's so much things to it. And I'll give you my experience towards that is that I feel that my self-talk, do you know that like there's always like this inner voice that is like talking to you, oh, you're not
Yeah.
great, oh, you
Yeah.
you fucked up, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, I recently try to take a step back, reassess myself, that kind of stuff. And I found that this self-talk is actually not my voice. It comes from my parents, it comes from
Yeah.
my friends, it comes from society. It's just basically then outside voices which I thought to be myself, my own voice.
Yeah.
And I like
Yeah.
that Gary Vee addressed that, and I can totally relate to that. And that's the huge part that I feel that makes me get affected by so much from the outside voices, the judgment, the opinions from other people. So I like to
Yeah.
jump into your world. How do you like is there any experiences that you kind of like struggle with towards this judgment and opinions? Because the outside voices is huge, there's so much voices out
Yeah.
there. I believe that one has to like do something about it. And what was your experience like for this? Yeah.
Okay, so I guess I have quite a probably quite a common experience, but I guess I've used it in a way. But I had um a friend who I house shared with at university who was very controlling in their nature, and he was very kind of used to say a lot of things that because he was a friend, and it got into my head, and it used to say a lot of things that
Right.
made me think that there was something wrong with me. And it was like I have this habit of asking why about everything, and now I know that it irritates people, but I still do it.
Right.
But then he just made me feel like because of that there was something wrong with me. It's like you've just got to stop asking why. You're just pissing people off. There isn't always an answer, and he made me doubt myself in so many ways. Made me feel like I wasn't good enough. Made me feel like no one, it was all of that judgment, and he put not just his voice into my head, but he said that was what everybody would think. And so, because he was my friend, I let him in, and I let me believe that.
Right.
And so a lot of negativity got into my head with that. And obviously, I think a lot of people have that. It's kind of the sort of thing you see in abusive relationships and stuff.
Right.
And we, I guess, I don't know, maybe who I am made me react differently. But eventually, he kind of did this thing where it was like, you're not listening to my advice anymore, therefore I'm not going to talk to you anymore. And he moved out, and he stole loads of my stuff. And
what the holy
yeah, I know. And then so about a year before he moved out, he'd asked me to look after some important paperwork for him, and I found it, and I said, look, I'll give you this back, but you need to give me some of my stuff back. And he said, I'm going to report you to the police. And I was just like, really? Are you really that insecure? But I mean, the way that I dealt with it was, I kind of, after he left, I was like, oh, and I sort of stopped, and I took a long, hard look at who I was and who I'd been, and all of the stuff that he'd made me think. And I was kind of like, well, hang on a minute, why did I let me believe that? How did any of that actually improve my life? And I just kind of said to myself, well, it's all what he thought and not what you thought. And I said, okay, well, what do I think of myself? And I started to look at myself from who I was and how I felt about myself rather than who he was. And I basically said to myself, well, okay, given his how he behaved, he's not worth the time worrying about anymore.
Right.
So everything he said, I kind of wrote it off. I was like, you know what? In the end, he wasn't worth the time.
Mm.
And that kind of made me get away from that. And it's always been difficult since, because I catch myself thinking, oh, what will people think?
Right.
And then I say to myself, well, okay, imagine that most people are doing exactly the same thing as you're doing, and they're sitting there thinking, oh my god, what will people think? So they're not actually thinking anything about me. They're just thinking, oh my god, what will they think about me?
Mm.
So I use that quite a lot. Like when I catch myself judging myself based on what I think other people will think of me, I say, okay, well, they're probably not actually thinking about me at all. They're because everybody's so wrapped up in themselves.
Right.
Like, so every time I catch myself judging myself like that, I think, well, they're not actually judging me. They're probably just worrying what I'm thinking about them. And I kind of have the attitude that anybody who's petty enough to really judge me in any way like that
Right.
is not worth worrying about, because it's just a reflection of their own self-worth. They're only doing that because they're too insecure to look at themselves.
100%. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I had a bit of a rough ride. I started out in a really good place and then went through a crazy difficult patch, and then I've come out the other side. And yeah, as I say, my attitude is I always just sort of look at it, and whenever I still do it, but I catch myself doing it and I say, wait, take a step back. That's not right, is it? And I've also learned to forgive myself.
Right.
So, yeah, everyone screws up, it's like, oh shit, I fucked up. What now? It's the end of the world. No, it's really not the end of the world.
Right.
It's kind of, I guess I do the looking at the worst case scenario thing quite a lot. So if I fuck up and I think, oh my god, I fucked up, then I kind of go, oh, okay, well, what's the worst thing that can happen as a result of this? And when I do that, it's not so bad. So that's kind of how I deal with that.
100%. Like I can totally relate to what you actually say, because long story short, for my case is like I was always given like a delusional kind of like a framework. Everything that
Yeah.
everything that I wanted is like given to me so easily. And once a certain period after I was 12, which when my father actually passed away, like I started to feel like I gotten into like a real world, like things just goes crazy. Like
Yeah.
people usually call me Jackson in school, that kind of stuff. So they will say like, Jackson, you messed up. And I was like, and I was super anxious. I was like, thinking, I have a lot of self-doubts about myself, that kind of stuff. And I do not know where to actually lean to actually get myself out of like this scenario. So I can totally
Yeah.
relate on what you actually said about, and I can feel so much empathy for that, man. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel so much like, as you say, empathy towards you about that, because it's it's such a human thing to sort
Right.
of feel that, oh, that disappointment when somebody says, oh, you fucked up, and it's like, it's about, like, it's so human, isn't it? It's just like about the whole social structure that we have as people, is you don't want to disappoint the people around you,
Right.
and then you feel like you can't ever try again because you might disappoint them again. But that's not true. And I mean, God, if I could give you one thing, it would be the way to look at that and say, actually, no, that's okay, because it's okay to screw up.
Right.
And it's, because everybody does it. It's like, so I work with a woman who's constantly like, oh, nobody else can do this thing that I do because they just get it wrong. But then there was a reason that I had to do her job for a while, and I came across loads of things that she had done wrong. And I was
Right.
like, okay, everybody screws up. You know, it's like, yeah, okay. So I guess I'd love to give everybody that kind of, oh yeah, everybody screws up. It's okay. Everybody screws up. It actually reminds me, there was a Gary Vee post that I saw this morning, where he said something about, it was a clip of him on stage, and someone had asked the question about starting a business, and they said, I feel like starting a business without knowing where I'm going is like climbing Everest without a map. And it
Right.
just made me think, it was like, yeah, but isn't it kind of fun to get lost?
Mm.
Like, because it might sound totally crazy, but I have done that. Like when I've been out driving in my car trying to get somewhere, and I find a traffic jam or something, I just take another road, even if I don't know where it goes, and I'm okay if I get lost. I'll find myself eventually. And I think that, again, it's fear, isn't it?
Right.
It's just fear. Everybody's afraid, and we need to learn to be a little bit less afraid, because it's okay. It's
Mm.
not the end of the world. And I just love to give everyone a bit of that, you know.
Mm.
Yeah.
Definitely, like you like stepping into the unknown and like figuring out yourself through there.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah. I mean,
that's the beauty, like you finding yourself through this unknown place. Yeah, it's
yeah.
interesting,
I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, it's, isn't it? I mean, it's exciting.
Mm.
It's like, oh, yeah, okay. I don't know where I'm going, but it's okay.
Right.
It's okay, because, well, and you know, yeah, you've got to have the confidence in yourself, but you've also got to remember that you're never alone, because even the people who might judge you a little bit will help you if you need it, because
Mm.
people just aren't that, and most people just aren't that nasty, you know.
Right.
Yeah, they might judge you, but they'll still help you if you really need it. So
Yeah. Humans
it's
are,
like
are,
you,
are are still helpful, like they
yeah,
they're underrated, Yeah, yeah.
yeah. We have so much capacity for beauty and growth, and I think that gets forgotten because people focus on the negative.
Mm, 100%, 100%. So, you actually talk about being like having confidence with yourself. So, what was the things that you actually experienced through like this like self-esteem thing? Like I believe I'm very hot onto self-esteem recently because I
Mm,
find myself having super low confidence with myself. So
yeah.
I like to jump into your world. How is it like for you to finding your own confidence, that kind of stuff? Yeah.
Um. Okay. So most of my confidence is I'm just loud and not really that confident.
Mm.
um. I like I so when I was a teenager, I went on an archaeological dig, and the second year I went, I taught the basic excavation techniques course, which meant that I had to give presentations. And I was terrified the first time I did it. But I had to teach the same course 6 weeks in a row. So
Right.
by the end of it, I just threw myself into the deep end, and I just said, you know what? You know all of this stuff. Just say it. And it's a little bit like your podcast, like you've just gone in and
Right.
you've just dived straight in and done it.
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
and you throw yourself in its deep end, and suddenly you realize, okay, this is all right. And you get a little bit used to it,
Mm.
which I guess is expanding your comfort zone. And
Right.
the I say my confidence is kind of more that I'm just loud. But when it comes to like internally, that follows. It's slow, but it follows.
Mm.
And you know, I guess, quite insecure about a lot of things. I think, like I have all this usual stereotypical I'm a girl, I think I'm fat things.
Right, right.
And that's taken a long time to deal with. And again, it's about looking at it through my eyes. It's like what you said about like the judgment. It's the same thing. It's looking at it through my eyes rather than looking at it through the eyes of somebody else. If I have an insecurity, I kind of say to myself, okay, why do I think that? And it's about being honest with myself and asking myself why I think something. So if I think, for example, that I'm fat, I say, okay, why do I think I'm fat? Because
Right.
I'm looking at myself in comparison with the people who think they're pretty, and the people who think they're pretty are stick thin and frightening and look a little bit unhealthy. And I think, well, actually, do I want to look like that? No, I really don't. I kind of prefer to look the way that I look. And when I start looking at it from my perspective, I say, okay, am I comfortable?
Right.
And okay, so as I said about so I had some physical problems um running the shop, and when it comes to weight, I'm not comfortable at the moment because I I feel it in my joints, and I know that I need to lose a bit of weight because it's causing restriction on my movement. I'm not
Right.
big, but I feel it physically. I feel unhealthy, and but I'm losing the insecurity because I'm looking at it as a perspective of, well, again, I'm not judging myself based on other people's things. So my self-esteem goes up because I start to feel comfortable in my own skin. And it's like this so much. I've tried to teach my brother this because he gets very he judges himself quite harshly,
Right.
particularly in respect of getting a girlfriend. And I've been trying to teach him for years that he needs to be comfortable in his own skin. He needs to be happy with who he is
Right.
when he's by himself, not when he's with other people. And once he does that, then he'll find the right girlfriend. And I think it's self-esteem is all part of this external judgment thing. You've got to spend time with yourself,
Right.
and know who you are. And if there's, I'm not above saying, okay, there's something about myself that I don't like. But when I do that, I don't sit and you can't sit and wallow in it. You can't say, okay, there's this thing I don't like. Like, um, I sometimes have a habit to dominate conversations. And around some people, they don't cope with that very well, and I don't like it when I do that because I feel like I come across as pushy
Right.
and rude, and so I'm not sitting there going, oh, I can't have conversations with people anymore. I'm just trying to reel it in a bit, you know. So
Right.
when I catch myself doing it, I guess I'm growing my self-esteem by watching myself more. Like I say, okay, I'm insecure about this, so I pay attention to what I'm doing, and if I catch myself doing something that I don't like, I stop. And it's difficult, and I do get upset sometimes. Like if I'm doing something and I catch myself doing it, and then it's like, oh, I'm doing it again, and then I get really upset, and it has an impact on me there and then. But after a couple of days, I'm okay again, and I think, okay, it's okay. We're okay. Nothing terrible happened. We just saw it happening, and we pulled it back, and we've learned from that. So I
Right.
guess it's all about learning, and just being prepared to ask yourself the difficult questions.
100%. Definitely. So, yeah, Sam, I think that all the things that you've been talking about is so spot on, you know. All the things that I really want to be on for this podcast, I've been struggling, to get
Yeah.
people to talk about all these experiences, and you've been so spot on. I'm just like,
Well,
wow,
I'm glad.
yeah. So yeah,
I
so
told you I was going to be honest.
awesome, yeah. So with that right, I like to have you to like speak up anything that is like currently like that is super hot in your mind that you like to share about, like anything. I like you to freestyle this podcast, because I think you've been like, wow, you've been so spot
Oh.
on, yeah. So I like to probably jump into you know uh expenses, buying dumb shit, people buying dumb shit. What do you think about those, yeah,
Yeah,
because
okay.
yeah,
So, everyone buys dumb shit, Um, again, I'm really quite restrained with this. I don't know where this came from.
right,
Well, but I'm really restrained with buying anything. So if I buy myself, I'll spend all of my money on gifts for other people. I don't care. Like, I'm like, spoil them, it's fine. But when it comes to buying stuff for myself, I'm like, do I really need that? Can
wow,
I afford to spend the money? No, I can't. No, I can't. So all of my clothes are falling apart because I just
oh
don't buy
gosh,
myself stuff. Like, I repair everything 100 times. I I'm really, and I don't know where that came from. I think that's just me. I think that's like a sort of not wanting to spend money thing. But it's weird because, as I say, I'll spend money, loads of money on all sorts of people. Like, I mean, Christmas is coming up, and when I look at the amount of money that I've actually spent on my family, it's kind of like, oh wow, that's a lot of money. Um, and I have a lot of dumb shit. Like, so I have quite a lot of Lego,
right,
which is quite entertaining for somebody who's in their 30s, I think people think it's a bit weird, but I'm okay with that.
right,
And I I have a lot of stuff, but a lot of it is stuff that I've inherited. So it's stuff that belonged to family, so it's got sentimental value. Um, but I just think all the dumb shit is just wasteful. It's
mm,
like I don't need it, And I wish I could tell you where that came from because I can't. But then at the same time, I spend money on stuff. Like, obviously you've said that like online. You've said that you're a gamer.
right,
I'm a bit of a gamer too. I have
awesome,
a Nintendo Switch and I've spent quite a lot of money on games for that. So yeah,
mm,
I guess that kind of comes under the category of dumb shit. But on the other hand,
right,
I play it and I use it and I do it for me, so it makes me happy. So it's kind of,
not the dumb shit, yeah.
yeah, it's like, this is making me happy. This is good. And I
Right,
guess that's the fine line, isn't it? It's like some people buy stuff because they think it's going to make them happy, and then it doesn't, and so they buy more stuff because they think it's going to make them happy.
mm,
And that's that again. I keep coming back to the same thing. It's about asking yourself the difficult questions. It's like, okay, does this make me happy? Well, yes, it does, but that's okay. Does this make me happy? No, I need more of it. Well, then no, you probably need to stop.
right,
You know, that's kind of,
definitely.
I guess, my take on it.
That's super awesome. And yeah,
I guess, I'd also like to add on to that so obviously Gary Vee says a lot of stuff about, oh, don't buy dumb shit and
right.
save your money, and that's entirely true. But when it comes to things like financing business, the way the world works is really quite amazing. And if you have an idea and a plan and you put it down on paper, you can, if you've got the drive to do it, you can find someone to finance it. Like, you've got to be able to do the shit. You've got to be able to get down into the dirt and do it. But if
Right.
you can do it, you can find someone who'll finance you. So yeah, okay. Yes, you need to save money and you need to hold on to that and not waste money. And yeah, so it's not waste money, but you also need to not be afraid that you're not going to have enough money to do something like start a business, because if you are going to be, if you can do that business, you can find somebody, some way to finance it, you know. But
Yeah.
if you can't do that business, then you'll never find someone who'll finance it. So you've got to focus on being the person who can do that, rather than finding the money to do it, because it's
Right.
just not about the money.
Right. 100%. Yeah. If as long as you got a will, there's a way. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, I agree on that, man. Like, people are just too afraid to try, you know.
Yeah, they
Like you talk
are.
about stepping to the unknown, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah,
yes, I totally get that, because that's how you talk about me trying to get onto the podcast itself. Yeah, at the start,
yeah.
it feels like, oh gosh, what's gonna happen? What's gonna happen? Then after I keep doing it, hey, actually, it's not that bad after all. Yeah.
No, it's not exactly. It's like, oh, you can do this, and the thing is that you don't you don't have to have the roadmap to go there. You can say, okay, you get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, what do I do next? And then you figure it out. It's okay, because you look back at what you've done and you see how you got there, and you can feel proud.
Mm.
It's like, you can feel proud of where you should feel proud of where you are now, because of how you got there. You can look back at how you got there and say, oh wow, I did that. And you
Mm.
can use that to move forward.
Mm. I feel that because I watch a ton of Gary Vee stuff, and this having like this roadmap stuff and you stepping to the unknown, I would call that like you one person to have this entrepreneur tendency, you know. So I
Yeah.
believe that people who are like this tends to become an entrepreneur, and I have like total respect for people who are not like this, you know. They are the
Yeah.
ones who comes like the second, third, or fourth guy who is behaves more like an executive, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, so
And
I can totally relate the things that you are so passionate about that you're pushing towards to. Yeah, man.
yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, everybody's different. It's not for everyone.
Right.
It's and you know, it's like some of my best friends are the kind of people who just want their quiet little lives. They want to go to work, earn their paycheck, come home, and have their happy life with their family, and that's wonderful. That's
Yeah.
absolutely wonderful, because they can get that joy out of that. And if they can get that joy out of that, then it's wonderful. I can't, you know, and that's
Right.
me. So I'll do my own thing.
Hmm.
And I think, and you know, there's need for everyone.
Right.
It's like people, like, there's so much fear about a lot of things, and people are like, oh, don't do it differently. But
Hmm.
you've got to do it differently occasionally, because there's a need for all the different types of people in this world.
Right.
Like, there's a space for everyone.
Hmm. Definitely. Definitely. I can totally relate to the things that you actually talk about, because I myself I feel that I am like pretty much very passionate towards like stepping the unknown as much as you are, but not as
Yeah.
passionate as you are. Yeah, I'm not like boom like bonkers, you know. Like I'm like man, yeah, I'm here,
Oh,
I'm
no,
here,
no,
yeah.
no! You can do it. You can
Yeah,
do it.
yeah. So I
You
totally,
have done it.
yeah, I totally get you, you know. So yeah. So before I end off like this podcast, right? I usually like to ask my guests like one last hot take that there is in their mind right now. So what is the thing that you're currently thinking about right now? Yeah. That you like to really like to
Okay.
talk about. Yeah.
Um. I guess so. There's for me personally. I guess I'm trying to start a business,
Mm.
but I think I could, you know, I think, given where we've been talking about today, and you know,
Right.
the things we've been talking about, I kind of think it's fitting to just say what's really hot right now, given, like, particularly because of the time of year it is, and with Christmas around the corner and stuff. It's like,
Right.
okay, just remember to spread a little love. because that's so important.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, just spread a little love and judge a little less and be happy. Like that's I can't give a better message than that. I can't give a better sort of more important message to my heart right now. You know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So we are having like much more love coming from Sam. Yeah. So yeah. So before I actually end off everything, it's like I really enjoy. You know, I genuinely enjoy talking to you and everything. So before we end off, like where can we find you on your social media? Are you very hot onto like those social media kind of stuff? Do you like to share any of those?
I'm a little bit I'm a little bit on Instagram at the moment. Uh Sam Jolin's on Instagram. I think mostly what you'll get is pictures of like the sunrise or the beach or stuff like that. Me sharing
Awesome.
pictures of just like the world basically, because I do that, and maybe the odd random thing, and maybe some cake because cake. So yeah, that's kind of me.
It's cool. It's cool. Yeah, totally cool. So, so grateful to have you here, Sam. I hope
It's
you.
been wonderful to
Yeah.
be here.
I hope you have fun. Yeah. I hope you have fun.
It's been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And I hope we
Awesome.
can stay in touch.
Yeah, we should. Yeah. So hope you guys had a great listen. I hope you guys had an amazing experience in this podcast itself and wherever you are watching YouTube or whatsoever not. So have a great one, guys. Yeah.